It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life. From the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators. The famous and not so famous. The controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here is Douglas Coleman.
Hello. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? We've got two very full interviews today, so no time to chit-chat. Our first guest is Ben Troupe, who is a retired professional football player. He played for the Tennessee Titans from 2004 to 2007 as a tight end. He's now doing speaking engagements as well as being a radio personality on ESPN and other radio shows. He's up first, followed by Tim Roller. Tim is a professional photographer, celebrity and fashion photographer, and he's going to talk about how to make your pictures look extraordinary. There is an act to it. It's not quite just point and shoot. So, no time to chit-chat. We will be right back with Ben Troupe. Okay, please welcome my guest, Ben Troupe. Hi, Ben. How are you?
Man, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I was interested to have you on because we don't have sports people on this show. I think you are the first one. And, typically we do musicians and we do actors and filmmakers and things. But because you're a public speaker as well, and I've worked with Danielle before, so I thought it would be just something a little bit different for the show and give us a little bit of an insight to perhaps a different type of person that we normally don't have on the show. So thank you for being the first one, certainly the first football player on the show.
Well, I appreciate it. I hope I paved the way for other guys. I hope definitely show the world that we get that we can sort of kind of articulate ourselves and talk about things outside of sports a little bit.
Okay, well, first let's just do a little bit of your background. You went to Butler High School in Augusta, Georgia. You were All-American, and then you went to University of Florida on an athletic scholarship, and you continued to play football. And
yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
You played there, and then in 2004, the draft pick for Tennessee Titans selected you in the second round. I don't know that much about the draft pick. Why don't you explain that process a little bit for people that don't know what goes on with that?
When you apply for the draft, when you make yourself eligible for the draft, you have this thing called the NFL draft. It's rounds 1 through 7. It's 32 picks representing all 32 teams, hopefully each round. And the higher you go, the more probability you get a chance to play. So first and second rounders are usually guys that is probably going to walk out of their colleges to their NFL franchises and continue being starters. So you're going to walk out of college and walk straight into the NFL, being a starter. And I was blessed to be the 40th picked in the 2004 NFL draft, selected in the second round by the Tennessee Titans. So when you think about the odds of getting selected, I mean, it's less than 1% of college football gets drafted. You're talking about 100 and maybe 45 Division 1A schools. You got Division 1 AA, Division 2, Division 3. And you're talking about thousands upon thousands of guys. Only 250-something guys going to get drafted. So to be selected number 40 out of 250-something guys and to still be the first pick of the team I went to was definitely a blessing. And, I appreciate that opportunity. I owe a lot to Jeff Fisher, the head coach, Mr. Reese, the general manager, and obviously Bud Adams, may he rest in peace, the owner of the Titans at the time.
So you played from 2004 to 2007, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you had a cute nickname, Troupe Scadoop.
Yeah. The thing about these nicknames, man, it's like you don't get to pick them. You can't tell your teammates, hey, this is what my family called me. Well, we gonna call you this. And I'm actually happy that my nickname is actually something I can say, on air to people, because some of these names get very, very inappropriate very quickly.
Yeah, that's a pretty harmless nickname, I think. You could have had something a lot worse, I think, yeah?
Because my last name is Troupe, they just want to have something that like rhymes with it. But some of these guys, I mean, I've heard pork chop and meatloaf and just a whole bunch of stuff that and the more you tell them you don't like it, the more they say it. So you can't win with these guys. Football players are like family members. You can't pick them. You just got to live with them.
Well, remember that guy many years ago? His nickname was Refrigerator.
Oh yeah, Refrigerator Perry.
Refrigerator
and
Perry.
And the thing is, I understand they did it because he was a big guy, but I don't want nobody walking around calling me Whirlpool or Maytag or no. But I mean, but you have to live with it. It's almost like they try to do something that kind of goes with, I guess, you and your personality and your size. But Troupe Scadoop, I could live with that because, like I said, I'd rather be Troupe Scadoop than Refrigerator. I don't want nobody calling me the Refrigerator.
Troupe Scadoop is definitely a much better name. Okay, so then you played football for 3 years, it looks like, and then you retired, presumably, yeah? Oh
yes, sir. Played with the NFL. You have to count the actual year that you get drafted. So I played 4 years with the Titans, 1 year with the Buccaneers and the Raiders, and I moved on from football because it wasn't something I actually thought I really needed for validation. I'm not one of these guys that football is my end all be all. It's not. Even though I'm going to be known as a football player and as an athlete for life, I felt as though what I was put here to do and be was so much grander than this great thing called the NFL. So I was able to walk away at age 26 on my own terms, healthy, still can play, still can contribute. But I still appreciate that the NFL platform. But I never ever considered myself to be a person that had to have football. It was just something that I was good enough to do. And but when I moved on with no regrets. I didn't move on bitter. I shook every hand I could, thanked everybody I could, and my career now that I'm doing now is far grander and greater than what I was doing before.
What is the average life expectancy of a professional football player? I mean, I don't mean how long are they going to live. How long do they play typically before they think, well, he's old enough? What's the typical retirement age?
Well, 3.5 years is 3.5 years, and the reason why people say 3.5 years is you can't get your benefits later on in life until you play 3 years and 4 games. So a lot of guys played 3 years, 3 games, got cut. Another team realized if he plays another game, he gets his benefits, and no other team picked him up. So that's one thing about me. By the time I was 24 years old, I already had retirement and 401k and different benefits. So that because I never cared about accolades, I never cared about touchdowns or recognition. But yeah, it's petty. I mean, most of those guys, when you hear about guys that got all these different health problems, if they only played 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, they got to just live with it. The NFL, you call the NFL offices and you ask them for assistance, the first thing they're going to ask you is your name and how many years you played. As soon as you say anything less than 4 years, they're going to say, sorry, sir, you don't qualify. So it's a business. It's cutthroat, but it comes with the territory.
So you left football, and what was the direction that you went? Because you're still young when you leave, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. I had no clue. Even though I know I didn't want to play football anymore, I did not know what I wanted to do next. What happened with me was I've always been in the position to work with young people, whether that's Shands Hospital, Make-A-Wish Foundation, Ronald McDonald House, and different things of that nature. So I gravitated towards nonprofit work and humanitarianism, and in my travels of doing that, I started doing a lot more speaking engagements, started getting recognized more for speaking engagements. And in that process, you meet people that help direct you, guide you, as far as like what I'm doing now. Started working with the NFL through the NFL Ambassadors College Outreach Program. So I got to go into these colleges and speak to these student athletes. And I kept getting recognized as a speaker. And it kind of like, speaking kind of found me, thank God. It was something that I never ever saw myself being and doing, but no matter what I did, I found myself in front of these different audiences, just sharing my message of, perseverance and hard work and dedication. And now, I get to go around the country and do it. And, like I say, it's a blessing to be able to do it.
Well, give me an idea. Give me an example of what you would talk about in one of your speaking engagements.
one of the biggest thing I talk about is failure. Failure being success's reflection. Everybody in this life wants to be successful. Everybody wants the top spot. Everybody wants to have the big bank account, the nice car, the nice home. But if you can't embrace failure on a day-to-day, if you can't go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm, success is not going to be something you're ever going to grasp. I mean, one of the best books I've ever read was Uncommon by Tony Dungy, the first African-American head coach to win a Super Bowl. He said success is uncommon and won't be felt by the common man. So I learned to use failure as a tool. I don't try to run from it. I learn from it as much as possible. I'm not looking forward to failing, but I look forward to using it as a tool. So when I'm standing in front of people expect me to talk about what I've done in a successful manner. I talk about my failures. I talk about what I struggle with. I talk about what I struggle with currently and what I have to continuously overcome to let them know that even though I've done incredible things in this life, I still fail. But I don't try to people always say failure isn't an option. That is the biggest lie that you can tell somebody, because it is an option. But how you use it, will determine your level of success. So I try to let that be one of my main monikers when I'm standing in front of people, because if I'm going to talk about what I'm good at doing and my highlights of my life, I mean, you can go on Wikipedia and see that. But if I'm telling you about the things you did not know about me, maybe, my story starts resonating with people who didn't think that, quote unquote, people of success actually have failure and actually embrace it.
Tell us about one of your failures.
One of my biggest failures in my lifetime was when I was in the 7th grade. Being a football player, I quit the team. And the reason why I quit the team was because it wasn't going my way. I wasn't at a premier position. I wasn't getting the recognition that I'm used to getting. I wasn't one of the guys on the team, and I quit. And my teammates let me know about it every single day from the end of my 7th grade year, even when I got back on the team. And the reason why it's one of my biggest failures is because I'm not a quitter. I don't quit, in this life. And it was one of those things to where I never, it's been a long time obviously since I've been to school, but that's something that I'm always trying to get past now. As a 35-year-old man, I'm like, man, I quit something, and yet I have to stand in front of people and talk about why quitting shouldn't be an option. So, and I tell people that. I go, yeah, man, because football is a parallel of life. I didn't get a chance to live out my true potential because I quit. And I try to use that to tell people now, like, don't quit and stuff, man, because the pain of regret is one of those pains that nobody wants to really, really live with. It's something that I have to deal with even to this day, because I got children, and I'm always telling them, don't quit, keep going, and daddy quit one time. So I don't try to run from those type things.
Are your audiences primarily young kids, or do you speak to all ages?
All ages. I get the most out of the older generation, because it makes me up my game in a sense that, I want my message to be, I feel as though my message resonates with whoever I'm speaking to. But whenever I get a chance to speak to people older than myself, and even, man, I've spoke to people in their 70s and 80s, and these people are hard to impress. You can't go off their facial expressions. They might clap for you in the end, but I think they really want to know that I'm, my speaking have substance. It's not just, I'm not just standing up here because, you paid for me to be up here. I hope to be able to give you a level of perspective that you didn't have before you sat in these seats. So while I love speaking to young people, I've learned to just speak to all people, because I don't want to be like kind of like put in a box that I can only speak to certain people. I want to be able to let my message resonate with whoever will have me.
One of the topics on here that I did want to hit of your speaking topics, you did the first one about failure. The one I liked or wanted to hear your opinion about was be uncommon. What is that one?
Be uncommon means you can't do anything. You have to create your own flow. In this life, most of us, we do what we're told. We do what we're taught. We never ever question the things we were told. We never ever question what we've been taught. It doesn't mean that the things you were told and the things you were taught aren't beneficial. But if you never question it, you only doing what somebody told you to do. And being uncommon is being just that. It's being unconventional. It's being uncanny. It's being abnormal. It's going against every norm that you've been taught. Because to me, if I, as much as I want certain things in life, I'm not going to get there doing everything I was taught. I'm not going to get there in a comfortable place. And the notion of being uncommon is just that. It's like being uncommon means I represent impossibility. I represent the type of things that people think, how in the world you think you're going to be able to do that? Because if I do things that's already been done, that's not going to be recognized. But I'm all about, chasing extraordinary. And being able to chase extraordinary means I have to be uncommon. I mean, think about it. If I go to the college and they tell me that less than 1% of college gets drafted, I have to be crazy or uncommon to believe that I'm that less than 1%. But but it starts with my belief system. So being uncommon is just that, is waking up every day understanding that I'm not regular, waking up every day understanding that the things I want in this life might not happen, but I'm chasing impossibility. I'm chasing, things that are not practical. That if I tell people what I want to do, they're going to think I'm crazy. But I just think that's what it takes in this life if you're chasing something that's worth something.
Is your speaking engagements now, is this turned into your full-time career? Or are you doing something else as well?
I'm it's not. I actually do sports radio now too. I work with ESPN Radio with SouthernPigskin.com, a show called 3 and Out, me and two gentlemen named Kevin Thomas and BJ Bennett. So, even though I've always had a good relationship with the media, I am a part of the media now. So I get to be the guy behind the mic compared to being the guy on the other side of the mic answering the question. I get to be the one asking them. But the great thing about what I do now is an extension of me. I still get to do my speaking engagements. I still get to work with young people. I still get to work with the NFL ambassadors through the college outreach program. So everything that I've built up to this point, I don't have to stop doing it. Because I work on the radio, I get to continue to do it, and I get to add the radio to it.
Tell me about when you speak with the kids. What's the message that you hopefully try to instill in them?
To tell them that you have to utilize what you have first before you ask for something more. Like a lot of times with young people, they're not utilizing the gifts and talents that they have. They just looking for somebody to help them. And I always ask them, what are you doing to help yourself first? Like, what are you doing besides asking for help? Are you doing something? Are you doing all you can till you get to a certain point that you can't go any farther, that you need assistance? Or are you just asking for assistance? Because I believe that most of these, and the big thing too is I focus a lot on those guys understanding that they matter right now with technology and social media, with all the information that they have at their fingertips. I let them know that you don't need me for information anymore. You need me for interpretation. With all the information that you have, you don't know how to interpret it. So I talk to them about interpreting all the information that they get and utilizing what they have. Like I have a young sister that's 18 years old, and when you think about technology, it has crippled the younger generation because they depend on it for everything. They are not adequate in just doing day-to-day regular things. And I try to talk to them about getting off automatic, letting them know, listen, there's going to come a time in life that you might not have this technology. What type of skill set do you possess that's going to help propel you towards, the things that you want to do in life? And I also let them know that, I'm rooting for them. I mean, I don't try to come in and try to be the old guy telling them that they ain't never going to amount to anything. I just say that anything worth having means you got to go out there and work for it. And, we usually have fun. I mean, young people, when I first come in, they kind of sitting back in their seats looking like, oh, this guy, they treat me like I'm finna give them some bad news. But I say, man, you guys can rest easy, man. I'm just here to tell you guys who you are, what you are, and what you're capable of. I believe who you are and what you are is the same. I believe who you are is the greatest and what you are is the greatest. What you're capable of, can't be measured. If our deepest fear is that we are not inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure, what are you doing every day with your power? Are you utilizing the power that you have, or are you, making your power like less than because all you're looking for is a handout?
I appreciate your comments about technology. I've seen it with a lot of kids, and it seems like that the technology. Now, I love technology. I like my phone. I like my computer. I like all of it. But it does seem like it's kind of crippled people in, number one, their attention span has gone down. And it also, I think, has crippled people's imagination. When I was a kid, we didn't have any of it. I think that the technology is just, it's limiting people's brains because it's doing the thinking for you. You don't have to think about anything other than just swipe the screen or push the button or move the mouse.
Google is raising a lot of these kids now. Or Google and Siri.
Yeah.
Oh man, they raising these kids, and I tell them how I get their attention. I always say, why do you think they call them smartphones? Because the person operating it might not be, but the phone can supersede you,
right?
And you depend on it for everything. I say, but I always say, who invented phones? Who invented phones in here? And nobody ever picks up. Nobody ever says anything. And then I'll go, well, if you didn't invent technology or a phone, that means that you don't control it as far as like when it leaves. So if you didn't start it, it might leave one day. Facebook and Twitter and MySpace and YouTube and Snapchat, it's gonna go away one day. What are you gonna do? And the face and the look they give me of terror, like, oh my God, I hope that never leaves. I'm like, man, this is supposed to be for leisure. It's not supposed to be your whole life. And I think they you kind of get their attention with that. But I just agree that while technology is great, I don't think it's supposed to replace human thought. I don't think it's supposed to do that.
Right. There you go. And I agree with you 100%. It's a tool that we can use, but I don't think it should, like you said, replace it. And it's one of the criticisms I get into with musicians that I have on the show, where I love the computer for recording and for editing and for mixing. I do not like it when it's creating the music. The music needs to be created by people playing an instrument. And, I get into arguments with guys all the time. Ones who...
Oh, yeah, they gonna get mad at you because it's the truth. And when somebody yells out, what happened? Where did, my friend would always say, what happened to the talent? Like, what happened to where, I can do a lot of things well, but I'm not depending on, Pro Tools to do everything. I'm like, listen, if I sit behind a computer all day messing with beats, I could become a pretty good beat maker. But that doesn't mean I'm talented. That means I know how to make beats. Right. And if I notice I can use this auto-tune to make my voice sound a certain way, well, what happens when the auto-tune or all the equipment goes out and I got to sing live? I can't Milli Vanilli it for life. I just can't. But we so used to that. I go, man, listen, what makes me enjoy doing what I do the most as far as being the speaker is, that's all me up there. There is no technology. There is no PowerPoint. There is no music. There is no imagery. It's me, a mic, and the audience. And that's what I like. I like the fact that if it's not authentic, it ain't me. I can't go up there and I can't tell my sound engineer, hey man, go to track 6. There is no tracks. It's me. And that's what I like the most about it. How creative can I be with my message? How can I say the same thing I said a million times resonate with my audience currently? And I get a kick out of it. I mean, I've always been a part of a team, and I've always been the show, like been a part of something greater than myself. But to go from being a part of a team to I am the team now, and it's all based on my research of my audience and where I'm going to be at and the subject matter. I think it creates a better me every time I step out there, because I always tell people I'm only as good as my next engagement, because the ones I've done, I can't undo them, I can't redo them. But the next one I do has to be my greatest one, because I might not get another one. So
you said you were 35 years old now?
Yes, sir.
What do you see yourself doing in the next 20 years?
In the next 20 years, I hope to have been a published author by that time, wrote 2 or 3 books. I hope to have had I want to have academies throughout the U.S. and the academies are simply based on the development of these young people, challenging them to embrace who they are and what they are. I'm still coming up with the premise behind it, but I think it's, different than a YMCA or Boys and Girls Club, but, really pushing them to be who they are. I want to have academies throughout the U.S. And as long as they'll have me on these radio waves, as long as I ain't said nothing to get me kicked off and get my program director fired, I hope to continue to, because I love radio. I think I have a face for radio, and I'm going to keep on doing it as long as they'll have me.
You got a face for radio. I got a body for radio.
And I like the fact that people care more about my voice than my face. So, nothing wrong with television and things of that nature, which if that's in my future and it's something that I feel as though can push me to be greater and better, I'll do it. But as of right now, radio, speaking, working with young people in my academies, and my book's coming out one day, I think I'll be doing it.
Well, I got to commend you on your efforts and your message that you're trying to put across. I think we need more people like you making that kind of a message, because people need to hear it from people that have made successes of their life. And in your bio, it states that athletes particularly are a big influence, especially on young kids. Kids look up to athletes. You guys are rock stars. The sports stars are as big as the rock stars and the movie stars. And I think you have a certain responsibility to be a positive influence on them. But also, when you're taking it to the next step as you've done it, I think it's tremendous, and I think you should be commended for that. The last thing I wanted to bring up on that note, and then we got to kind of wrap this up, I wanted to bring up the controversy in the NFL now about some of the people that are kneeling during the national anthem. How do you feel about that? What's your take on that?
I respect those guys. I mean, I respect the fact that protests are supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to ruffle feathers. It's supposed to put people in a position that they're talking about things and acknowledging things that doesn't really affect them. And listen, too much is given, much is required. I mean, I'm not putting him in the same breath with a guy like Colin Kaepernick. He's gonna be looked upon as a hero one day because he went against the grain. He went against what he was told he should do or should say. I mean, Rosa Parks wasn't protesting public transportation, but she did sit down. Martin Luther King Jr., he was opposing something. Malcolm X was opposing something. And I think that once these players understand, like you say, little kids are looking up to them. So when you was in the NFL around the time of the protest, somebody's going to ask you, hey, man, what did you do? Did you stand up or did you kneel? And the thing about it is while kneeling makes people uncomfortable, it's not about the flag. It's not about the anthem. It's not about the military. I believe that every football player in the National Football League supports the flag, the anthem, and the military. It has been hijacked by those people of power saying that it is about the flag and the protests and the military. But listen, I applaud them for this, if nothing else. You cannot let somebody control your narrative. You have to tell your own story. Don't let nobody else tell it for you. And while Colin Kaepernick is no longer in the National Football League, I believe he started something that's being, the torch is being passed on to the current players, and I applaud them, even if some of them don't know why they're doing it right now. Listen, when Martin Luther King Jr. first started the civil rights movement, people didn't understand what he was doing. He was vilified. But years later, he had more people at the March on Washington than Donald Trump did at his inauguration. So if you tell me that things can't end well just because they start crazy, I would say no. I would say, look at, the progress that has been made in the past. But I commend those guys because it takes courage to do things sometimes that you don't understand, but you gain understanding through, through and through. And I'm applauding those guys because they have a tremendous platform, but they utilize it for more than just scoring touchdowns and putting people in the seats and selling jerseys. Do
you think that it's appropriate that they do it there?
Yes, I think it's appropriate because you got to think people. This is all what I always say. When people say, "Well, there's a time and a place," and I go, "Well, what is that time and that place?" And when they tell me, I say, "Well, you do that." And some of them, I think, understand that. Yeah, I might get fined, I might get suspended, I might get vilified for it, but no greater platform than when everybody's watching. I mean, because if nobody's watching, it doesn't resonate.
Well,
so
very true. Yeah.
Yes, while think about it, if I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, at a Target in Buckhead, and I'm yelling out, I'm kneeling for the flag, they're gonna call the police, and I'm gonna get locked up. It might make the news, but ain't nobody gonna know. But if I'm an NFL player, and the only patriotism I've ever been taught in my life was growing up somebody telling me to put my hand over my heart when they play the national anthem, meaning I really don't know what patriotism is. I've only been told what it is. I don't know what social activism is. I've only been shown what it is, but I'm doing both when I'm doing this. Your platform is far greater than what you do athletically. Like you told me, sir, we have an obligation and a responsibility to do more for the people that can't, to speak for the people that can't, to be a voice for the voiceless. And I applaud any man or woman that's willing to do something and it could potentially take away their own livelihood and everything they've worked for somebody behind them. I can't do nothing but applaud those people.
Do you think it's creating friction amongst the team members? Ideally, you're supposed to be, when you play on a team, you're supposed to all be going in the same direction. Do you think it's creating problems within the team? I don't know. I haven't heard, but
it can.
Yeah,
it can. But you know what? Look, NFL locker room is the greatest place in the world because no greater place of diversity and inclusion and indifference than in there. You got every shape, you got every ethnicity, you got every religion, you got every belief. But we can put it all aside because we respect each other. I think when the foundation of any football team or player is respect. We respect each other, and we can respectfully disagree without being disrespectful. So yeah, it could create it, but if you only go with the things that you are comfortable with, what does that say about you? I mean, because it's things that I do that you might not like, it's things that you do that I might not like, but I can respect you in the process. So I think that we used to dealing with craziness in the NFL locker room. We can put it to the side because at the end of the day, everybody's not going to agree with each other. But we can walk hand in hand. We don't got to see eye to eye, and I think that's what NFL. I always say that if everybody in America was a part of a team, a lot of stuff that exists in America wouldn't exist at all, because you have to be around the people that you dislike. You have to interact with the people that you have differences with in order to learn from them and with them to grow. And if you don't want to do that, well, you just live in a box.
Well, that's a good point. And I think one of the things that America is struggling with at the moment is trying to find that kind of thread that binds us all together as Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have gotten farther apart with through divisive politics, or, I mean, who knows? There's all kinds of reasons why. But we need to find something that's going to bring us together, whatever that is, because we are a team. You know, we're a team of Americans.
Yeah, we are. And I always say this. I think what scares America the most is, what if everything you thought about a certain group of people, a certain demographic of people, a certain religion is false? I'd rather have the ugly truth, because America, we live in a beautiful lie society. We want the lie, but it's beautifully told, beautifully said. And we rather live with the lie than be told the truth, because the truth is ugly, but the truth is also consistent. And I believe that certain people rather live with the lie than die with the truth. So that's what we do. Instead of knowing that I don't know everything about everybody to put everybody in one box, that's what I've been told, so I'm going to just live with that. And what happens is, in the process, we get farther and farther apart. Indifferences is supposed to bring us together. I think the biggest misconception about the world is we are a melting pot. I don't believe we are a melting pot. I believe we are a gumbo. Because if you've ever had gumbo, everything within gumbo still has its consistency. You can tell what the potatoes are. You can tell what the corn is. Right. But in a melting pot, you don't know where nothing is.
Right.
Like
exactly.
you have to go, what is that? Is that cilantro? Is that? And I think the world wants to be a melting pot so that we all fade away. But no, we still have our consistency. There is nothing wrong with loving your culture. There's nothing wrong with loving your traditions. But if we respect one another, and if the foundation is respect, we wouldn't have a lot of things we have. Because while I might not agree with you, I respect you. While I might not like what you do, I respect you. But we live in a disrespectful society that says whatever's on our mind when we feel it. And until we can embrace the fact that we are different, but yet we are all American, the world will continue to be in the situation that's been in. And it's not going to matter who's in office either.
Well, Ben, we got to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming on. This was very inspirational, actually. And
well, I appreciate you having me, sir. Appreciate you having me.
Do you have a website you want to give out? People can look you up?
No, they can just follow me on Twitter at Ben Troupe Pro, BenTroupe, PRO, Ben Troupe Pro. And just go to brushwoodmedia.com. That'll be the best way to get in contact with me. Because, them websites and all those different things, man, I let Danielle and them, I let them handle it, because they better at it than me.
All right. Very good. Okay, Ben, take care. Thank you again for coming on the show. I appreciate it. It was nice talking to you.
Thanks again for having me. Appreciate it.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. All you got to do is get in touch with me on epsmusicproductions.com. That's EPSproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me the spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
Okay, please welcome my guest, Tim Roller. Hi, Tim. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Oh, doing fine. Thank you. I can't remember exactly what it was about your bio that intrigued me. There was something, or the email that you sent out, I guess you were looking to get on some radio shows, And there was something about Facebook profiles. Am I thinking of the right thing? And it said the pictures that you put on your Facebook profile can make or break your profile or something like that.
Well, absolutely. That's certainly one of the things that I do as a photographer, is make sure that a person looks as good as they can possibly look. And not only that they kind of give me a really, really honest moment that I can capture of them. So when you put something on your Facebook account as this is who I am, it's got to be at least intriguing. It needs to be an honest moment, or if you're a real silly person. But anytime you take a picture, don't ever take a picture of yourself in the bathroom.
You know how many people do that? I've seen more selfies of people doing it in the bathroom mirror.
And it's because if you think about taking a picture, you think about you have to have good light. And when you walk in a bathroom, your face is perfectly illuminated if you have good light in your bathroom. And most bathrooms illuminate your face real nicely. But you think about all the other stuff that's in bathrooms. And dare to zoom around of someone's selfie in their bathroom, you're going to find all their medications are sitting out on the counter. You know, there's just nothing real flattering about the ambiance of a bathroom. There's nothing in there other than great light that anybody wants to see.
Unless you live in like some multi-million-dollar mansion that has some palatial bathroom.
I've been told that toilet is not an okay thing to say.
Well,
but don't ever show a toilet in a selfie.
Yeah, no matter how grand it looks, a toilet is still a toilet. That's for sure.
But yeah, when you're taking your picture, or when someone's taking a picture of you for your profile, make sure that you're styled properly, meaning you have the right clothes on. Make sure that your angles are correctly. For instance, a bad angle. People say a camera can add 10 pounds to you. Well, a camera used properly can also take 10 pounds away from you if you use the correct angle. So just understanding angles and making sure that you look good is important. And, as a professional photographer, that's my job, is to make sure that someone that comes in, if they want weight taken off of them, I take the weight off of them as much as I can. Make sure that they're styled properly. If it's a woman, make sure she has her makeup's done correctly. If it's a man mostly, they give me the best looks when I tell them, okay, what do you want for lunch? Think about that for a second. Generally, a man will give me the non-committal, because guys are most of the time, pretty meat and potatoes guys. We don't think a lot about stuff. My wife will look at me and go, what are you thinking about? Obviously, you're deep in thought. And I'm thinking, well, I'm thinking that I really like this TV show. It's not all that complicated. So men, don't try to look sexy. Oh my gosh, don't try to look sexy because you look weird. Just look like you're non-committal, that you're interesting, that you're engaging, that life is good, but you're not all that interested in what's going on around you because you really don't care. If you look at great portraits of celebrities, they know how to turn that, I wonder what I'm going to have for dinner, look on.
What if you're photographing male models? I mean, they do have to look sexy to a point.
Well, no, I would say that if a male gives me an honest look, who he is going to come out. And that's really what you want to do. And for instance, one of my favorite things to do is say, okay, think about the word sneaky. Think sneaky, and give me that look. And I kind of have to back up and kind of describe to you what I tell everybody, that actors don't act, actors react. So for instance, if I tell someone to look happy and let me take your picture, that's not very specific, but I would say, okay, you have absolutely no money in your bank account. You have absolutely no food in your house. You have no money in your pocket, and you're broke, and you don't know what you're going to do, and somebody walks up to you and gives you $100 bills. React to that feeling. An honest reaction to a feeling is really what a photographer, and me as a photographer, wants to get out of people. And so I say, okay, you're being sneaky about something. Look very sneaky and be honest about it. Because people, especially in camera, I think they pick up on dishonesty real easily. So if a man steps up there and goes, okay, I'm going to be sexy, and I've seen a million men trying to be sexy, none of them are. Maybe George Clooney can get away with it. Quite frankly, George Clooney does the great look of, wonder what's for lunch.
Yeah, he's got a nice look. Every time I see pictures of him, I say, yeah, he's a handsome guy. He sort of radiates that without being arrogant about it.
Yeah, and you have to have humbleness. One thing I say is your ego is not your amigo. People don't want to be around arrogant people. They want to be around real people.
True.
They don't want to be around a false air or someone trying to be something they're not. They just want to be around other people that are going to be real and going to be humble and kind.
So how long have you been a professional photographer?
Well, about 2 years.
2 years. Oh, okay. So not that long. What were you doing before that?
I was a professional musician coming out of college. I toured with a band. I wrote music, and I was on the road all year. And I went off the road and got married and started to become a computer programmer. I learned that. I kind of worked my way up into the corporate world and was a partner in a consulting firm. And once again, I was on the road 6 days a week. So, about 15 years into that, I had children. I had small children. So I moved home, or didn't move home, but I went home and became a commercial real estate broker. And what I did was investments and shopping centers and retail. So that was my specialty. And I was very successful. But I was very, very unhappy, and I realized that here I'm 50 years old, and I'm really not happy in this career. And during Christmas break with my children at my in-laws' house, if you've ever been to my in-laws' house anyway, sometimes I just like to escape. So I took an online course on photography, and I was a photographer in college a little bit. But I just as watched this gentleman by the name of Joe McNally talk about light, and I said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And 2 years ago, so I walked in and quit my job at the real estate firm. They thought I was crazy, and just started doing it. Just said, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to pursue it. So I took my savings and have been doing this ever since.
Let me back up a little bit. You said you were a musician. What kind of band were you in? What sort of music did you do?
I did some studio work. Probably not too many people you would know. The only person I ever really worked with that was very, very popular was Melissa Etheridge, and that was very early in her career. Okay. So I can't really say I toured with her on the road, but I ended my career in Christian music, and I toured and played in, again, studios and wrote some music. A couple songs got picked up on records, which was really cool. I got my first check, was like $13 for a song I wrote, got picked up in the UK. I never cashed it. I said, I'm going to keep this check forever, and now I don't know where the check is. So
I should be getting one from YouTube for about 22 cents any day now.
Amazing how that works.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Okay, let's go back to photography for a minute because, I mean, let's face it, anybody, and especially these days with digital, can pick up a camera, point it, shoot it, and take a picture.
Yes.
Okay, but what is the knack that makes someone a great photographer?
Well, I speaking for myself, I can say that I started as an artist, and I've been an artist ever since I was a little kid. When I was a toddler, I was marching around with my dad's trombone, half of his trombone slung over my shoulder, playing music. And a photographer has to start out being an artist and saying, okay, what am I going to create? I want to create something beautiful. That's how I approach photography. So, I was told, in fact, yesterday, I was told I don't take enough pictures. You need to always have a camera in your hand, and you need to be taking pictures everywhere you go. And when you're in the airport, you need to be taking pictures of people and taking pictures of people around you. You need to always have your camera. And I'm thinking, well, that's not really creating art. That's just taking pictures. And I think that's what I do is I love the process of creation. I love the process of art. It's not just taking the picture. It's what is the story I'm going to tell. So it's much like, someone doesn't just pick up a guitar and play a song. They have to kind of plan out what song they're going to play. And it's very similar with photography. I say, okay, kind of what is the basic story I'm going to tell? Is it someone, jetting off to New York to go to the theater? And I get that specific. And then I say, okay, who do I want to jet off to New York? And I find that person. And then I'll say, okay, well, we need a jet, so I'll go find an airplane, and then, find the right car and find the right wardrobe and get the makeup going and just really create a moment. I tell people it's, as an artist, we try to create honest moments completely dishonestly. So we bring all these people and all this stuff together to make this beautiful image. And then once everybody's standing around and everything's perfect, I say, okay, now let's work on the honest moment. So as an artist, I'd say I like to consider myself creating an image, just like creating a painting. If you're a painter, that's what photography is to me. It's creating a moment and hopefully a beautiful moment that someone can be proud of, someone that can look back on their life and, have this image of them for the rest of their life. Or, it's an ad campaign. Hopefully someone will go spend a lot of money at the client's business. But at the end of the day, if you don't communicate that honest, genuine feeling that everybody wants, you're just taking pictures. And quite frankly, this morning, I was on the top of this mountain and the sun was behind my model. And without my flashes, there's no way I could properly light this model. Because the phone just doesn't, the phones just don't know how to do that. There's not an app for that. But once the model turned around, it was in completely natural light. The phones did a great job. So everybody's a photographer now. Everybody just pick up a camera. The phones are absolutely magnificent. But to take time and create something that you love and create something that's beautiful and something that you want to hang on your wall, is another thing. But I think the most rewarding thing I get out of being a photographer is when someone, and this happened the other day, this young lady came in and I took her picture, and we were looking at them after she was done, and she started kind of crying. She goes, gosh, I never thought I could look that beautiful.
You should have told her, you look better in these pictures than you really do.
No, I said, sweetheart, you look this good all the time. And I was sincere. She's a beautiful young lady.
I assume that you don't use a phone in your profession for your equipment.
No, I don't. However, with YouTube, in my YouTube channel, I do explore using your phone and understanding how to use light with a phone.
Oh, okay.
But no, when I'm shooting, I use a Nikon D5 camera with Ellen Chrome strobes and real expensive gear to make it perfect.
Okay, so there still is, in other words, that kind of gear. A phone's not going to compete with that in terms of quality. No. It can compete if you're, sitting at a table eating with someone and the light's perfect. It'll kind of compete with it, but it's really complicated to create perfect light because you're not just lighting the person. And this is where a lot of young photographers kind of get off track. They light the person, and then they forget about everything around them. And you've got to create a feeling of the environment around this person again, so it looks honest, it looks real. It may be completely real or it may be completely staged, but no matter what, you want it to feel real. So, I go to great lengths. I'll use 10 flashes on some of my images. Like when I was talking about the airplane shoot I did not long ago, I had a flash inside the airplane. So when the model was walking up in the airplane, it didn't look like she was walking into a black hole. So the flash went off in there. I had a flash on one side of the airplane that was a blue gel, and the other side of the airplane kind of facing each other to kind of illuminate the airplane. I had a flash underneath the airplane to kind of give it a little pop underneath. And then I lit the model. And then there was another airplane in the background. I kind of popped some light on it too. So you really need to create depth and texture, and your wardrobe has to be right, and your model has to be right, and everybody has to just kind of come together for an image to happen.
But there's some hacks that people can do to make their phone great.
What,
but it'll never compete with magazines.
I was going to say, what do you prefer, film or digital?
Digital.
Have you ever shot on film?
I did when I was in college. That's all they had.
Well, right.
I sold one of my old snare drums and bought this really crappy Nikon camera from a pawn shop, and that's what I carried around and shot with. And I shot the president of the college once, just kind of off a whim. He just kind of asked me to do it, and I did, and it got published in the school magazine, and that was very cool. So that was my first published image.
In terms of aesthetics, not in terms of manipulation and ease of use, what is it about digital you prefer to film?
Well, digital, you get to have a great big monitor right next to you, and the second you hit that button and take that picture, it pops up on the monitor, and I have at least one person looking at the monitor, make sure the picture's right. So getting everything to come together is so much better. And I do have my pictures retouched, meaning they go off to someone takes it through Photoshop, and they make sure it's, all of the colors are correct, and sometimes they get rid of pimples. But the images that I like to create, I get them as close to what I want right out of the camera. If you look at some of my images that came right out of the camera and after they've been retouched, they're pretty close. So the great thing about digital is you can tell exactly what you have the second you take the picture. And you're calibrating your monitors to make sure that white is white and green is green and red is red. And you make all these, everything comes together. It just kind of removes the possibility of screwing up. You know exactly what you have as you take the picture. It will not accidentally ruin the images. I mean, when I was in college, there were rolls of film I just threw away. And plus, rolls of film are expensive.
They're expensive, yes. It's interesting because I've interviewed a lot of filmmakers. And, of course, everybody shoots on digital these days. But a number of them, I'd say at least 50% of them, said, if I had the money, if I had the budget, I would love to shoot that same film on 35 millimeter. Just because they like the aesthetic look of film better.
Yes.
So I was, curious if that was the case with still photography.
I think that certainly, I hate to always go back to music, but that was the first thing that I've loved, and I've done it all my life. A vinyl record just has a sound.
Yeah.
That digital can't recreate.
Digital sterilizes the vinyl record sound.
Yeah. And I think that probably a digital, no matter how many pixels you have in an inch, I think it does sterilize the image. It takes away something. Maybe someday I'll say, hey, I'm going to start shooting film because I want to be a purist. But right now I just kind of want to get paid.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. If I can be a capitalist
for a second.
I was trying to think the last time I was ever serious about photography, and I went to Europe for my high school graduation. I think I'm probably, if you said you're 50, then I'm 5 years older than you. So it was a single lens reflex camera. I don't think it was a Nikon. There was a sort of a knockoff like Nikkormat or something.
Yeah, sounds about right, maybe.
But it took decent pictures. And I remember I bought 15 rolls of Kodak Ektachrome film. And they were all slides. Do you remember those days?
Absolutely.
Those weird days where you had to set up the projector and the screen and look at all your pictures. I remember taking, all 15 rolls of film. And I just remember being very careful. Like, I don't want to take that because I only have 2 rolls left and towards the end of the trip. And thinking about it now with digital, you don't really have that problem.
No.
But the one thing I did not like about it was that, like you said, you had to wait till you got home. Then you had to send them out to be processed. And then you got them back and you looked and you said, oh, shit, that one was no good. My finger was in the way, or somebody walked in front of the shot or whatever. And the other thing is, looking at them now they're starting to fade, and the colors are kind of going. Like there's a couple of them that turned orange just from sitting around for too long. Where I don't think digital will erode over time, will it?
Well, I think certainly the digital file, if you can find it in 20 years, that's the problem. Is we're taking thousands and thousands and millions of pictures, and they're just kind of getting stored on our computer at home, and we don't ever really go back and look at them unless, where's that one picture we took of the house when it was snowing, as just a person taking pictures. So there's real benefit to pulling that box out of the closet and saying, wow, that's a picture of my grandpa. I didn't even know that existed. That is so cool. And that happened to me not long ago. I pulled out a picture of my grandfather, and he had a bow tie on. Well, he only wore a bow tie at work, so I knew he was at work. He worked at a school, and it was a really, really meaningful picture. And it was faded, and the corners were kind of curled up. But now I take that picture and I hold it in my hands, and it's just so special, and it's meaningful. And I think that's one thing that when people are taking pictures, understand that this is our history. Understand that when we just pick up our phone and just hit the button, or whether we go through all stand on our heads to make sure the lights are right, and take the picture, it's something that's going to last either a very, very long time or it's going to get lost. So that picture of my grandfather that I hold so dear, and that picture that you have that's kind of faded, I mean, that's your history.
Right. The other thing positive on the film side, like you said, something about getting that box out of the closet, is that I've lost so many pictures from hard drive crashes over the years.
Yep.
And, you just never get them back. Where if you got a box full of them in the closet, they might fade, but they'll still be there.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone, when they have their favorite picture, there are so many little apps that you can just click on, and for 10 cents, have that picture printed and sent to you. Or go through and select 50 of them. And for $5.
$5, yeah.
I mean, you can get all those pictures printed. And yeah, they're going to sit in a box, but someday your great-grandchildren are going to open that and goes, who's this person? And then they're going to go, oh, that was my great-grandfather. Wow, that's cool. Let's put this picture in a shadow box and put it above our couch. And I was visiting my niece and nephew last weekend, and over their couch were 4 shadow boxes of all their different sides of their families, and the great-grandparents and the grandparents. And that was pretty special.
I'm assuming that you're a photographer for hire. Do you pretty much shoot anything that somebody wants you to shoot? You do like magazine spreads, ads?
Magazine spreads, ads. I don't do weddings. They scare me.
I can't say I blame you on that one. Okay.
We hired a photographer for my daughter's wedding, and he's now a very, very famous wedding photographer who makes a lot of money, and he didn't get one shot of my daughter and my wife together, not one. And my wife wants to kill him, and I'm like, well, that's why I'm never going to be a wedding photographer.
Well, it's interesting really, that you were a musician as well, because I'm a musician, and that was one thing we would refuse to do. We never would play weddings.
Yeah, and there are wedding photographers that make bank. I mean, they make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, man, not for me.
All right, Tim. Well, we've got to kind of wrap this up. This was really interesting. What is your website in case somebody wants to procure your services?
timroller.com.
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Yeah, roller, just like roller skate.
Is that your real name?
That is my real name, yes.
Because it sounds kind of like a stage name.
We're German farmers from Kansas.
Oh, all right. Okay.
And in fact, my German name is Hair Roller, so there you go.
Hair Roller, perfect. Yeah. It's like hair dryer. Yeah.
Hair dryer, hair roller, whatever.
All right, Tim. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Douglas. I appreciate you.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Ben Troupe and Tim Roller. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.
the